Yes, this is DJ Ski.
I'm Jeff Wilson.
Hey guys, Andy Broom, Vice President of CGC Cards.
Hey, this is Jason Howard with Panini.
Yo, I'm Q Harrison.
This is Teapot from Sports Card Investor.
I'm loving the content.
Loving the content here.
The Sports Card Strategy Show.
The Sports Card Strategy Show.
This is the Sports Card Strategy Show with your man, Paul Hickey. What's good?
Part of the NoOffSeason.com Sports Card Network, the #1 place for advice on how to make money flipping sports cards. Thanks for tuning in, and remember, there is no off-season.
You already know, there is no off-season.
No off-season!
All right, you ready to rock?
Ready to go.
When you get into this game, the reason why you pay someone like Paul Hickey to get your sports card strategy together is because sometimes when you're starting out, you need perspective, you need wisdom, you need insights. And so he's been around the track enough times where he can actually coach you up and guide you. Doesn't mean he's going to take you to the promised land tomorrow, but you now have a coach by your side that can advise and kind of even create these pathways where you can get the education yourself. And that's a lot better than thugging it out on your own. Thugging it out on your own.
What? The kids better buy my rookie card now, because after this year, the price ain't coming down.
Welcome in, everybody. I'm your host, Paul Hickey. It's time to sit back, listen, learn, and earn with me on the Sports Card Strategy Show. Put down your brackets for a second, everybody, and let's talk some sports cards. But happy St. Patrick's Day and happy March Madness officially tipping off this week to the NoOffSeason.com fam. Lefty McKee in the house with me as always. Lefty, how you doing, brother?
Dude, I'm doing really well. Bracket season is, in fact, here, and it's my favorite time of year, Paul. I mean, as we talked about last week, there's just so many good sports that are going on right now. I mean, like, it's kind of hard for buying season for sports cards because there's so much media that's around sports in general. But at the same time, my sports heart is just exploding. So it's really good. So.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. That's awesome. Hopefully all of your teams were seated where you wanted them to be seated, everybody in the NoOffSeason.com fam. Despite losing to Wisconsin in the Big Ten tournament, my Sparties are a 2 seed, so I'm happy about that. Lefty, real quick, who's your squad in this year's tournament, and how do you feel about them?
Well, I got to root for A&M. You know, that's my school, and they're actually decently competitive this year. I think Buzz Williams is always going to be tough in a tournament because his teams are really, really difficult to play against. They're really defensively minded, focused teams. So I'm rooting for them, but I also don't think that they're going to go very far. But I am rooting for Cooper Flagg, and I believe that it's all a sham and that he is healthy, and they're going to win the national championship. That's my hot take.
That's interesting. We're going to get to Cooper Flagg here in a minute, but first let's say hello to some people in the live chat. 3 premium members at NoOffSeason.com right off the top here. Jaime Corona, he's a Houston guy, says go Cougs. Jessica Kimberlin, happy St. Patrick's Day. And Terry Anderson is listening live from Amman, Jordan.
That's awesome.
That's really cool. Best of luck to your daughter's family on a work assignment. And Terry can't miss his favorite Monday activity. We appreciate that. Brian Bartunik and Sean Red 5 Cards in the house. 2 more loyal premium members at NoOffSeason.com. I mean, if you aren't a premium member at NoOffSeason.com, and Ben T, here we go. Go Ducks. Go Ducks. I'm actually rooting for the Ducks, even though, so we beat the Ducks on Friday. Michigan State beat the Ducks, but I'm actually rooting for the Ducks in the NCAA tournament. I actually like Oregon just because I'm a big Nike guy, so I got to root for Phil Knight School.
And they're your Big Ten team because of the past couple of weeks you've been just...
That's true. I did make a statement about Big Ten being better than the SEC. So the SEC got more teams in, but I'm definitely
actually.
Yeah, the most ever. That's pretty impressive. And an expanded Big Ten did not get more teams in than the SEC. But I think that when it's all said and done, when we get to the Sweet 16, Lefty, it'll be interesting to see how many are left from each conference. Let's put it that way. We'll see.
Do you? Okay, I just need to know. You don't have to elaborate. Just a quick answer. SEC or Big 12, which one's better? Basketball-wise.
I'd have to go SEC.
Okay, all right.
I'd have to go SEC on that. Yeah, I think the SEC is super strong. I just think the Big Ten did not get the respect it deserved throughout the season this year, because they had like so many teams ranked in the top 25 and it was so tough. Not that the SEC didn't have the same thing, but I just think for every SEC team to pretty much outrank the Big Ten team, that just didn't make any sense. But anyway, are you tracking your sports card profit and loss sheet properly in 2025, Lefty? Are you?
Yeah, I am.
Of course you are. Sports Card School and our inventory tracker help you to do so. Go premium at nooffseason.com. As you know, you get a free 30-day trial option. There are multiple pricing tiers, but that free 30-day trial option hits your credit card after 30 days, and it's only 82 cents per day if you do the math. So if you want to pay annually, it's only 82 cents per day. That's your best deal. Listen, here's another thing. I just want to put this out there real quick before we get into the meat and potatoes of our content on today's show. Are you having problems buying into too many breaks? Anybody out there having problems buying into too many breaks? This is a topic we've talked about a lot on the Sports Card Strategy Show, as well as on the premium pod at nooffseason.com. Our content has even been reposted by several other content creators that we respect in the hobby, related to our take on the breaking problem that exists in the hobby. I would like to know from you, are you having problems buying into too many breaks? So here's what I want you to do. If you are, email me at paul@nooffseason.com. I think I might have an idea to help you guys out. So if you feel like you actually need help, email paul@nooffseason.com. Now, Lefty, one thing I was doing as I was looking at cards, analyzing cards for our premium members, is I found, I like this. I really like doing the legwork for our premium members at nooffseason.com in terms of their questions, because it helps me find really good deals on cards that I can then sort of amplify out to the Sports Card Strategy Show audience. Mm-hmm. And I think a card that people should look at buying instead of buying into breaks would be a graded card, an already graded card, PSA 10. And I've asked Jake the Guardian to see if we should add this to our formula-based rankings for already graded, or as you like to say, graded to graded. And that is Jalen Hurts 2020 Optic Holo PSA 10. So this is a card we've talked about a lot on the Sports Card Strategy Show over the last several years. But what's interesting to me about this particular card is that he's coming off a Super Bowl win, obviously. And this card is pretty much near its low. It's currently at $170. It's all-time low, basically. Its 365-day low is $102. Now, that was during the mid-season dip that we talk about. So it's hard to compete with the low prices of the mid-season dip. But it's at $170. Now, Lefty, this card was selling for $267 pretty consistently around that $260, $270 mark in August. So you know how we always talk about football cards probably being the easiest pattern to identify in terms of when to buy and when to sell. And now you've got a Super Bowl winning quarterback with this card. It's only a pop 1834. It's just interesting. Why would you spend $200 on breaks or $150 on breaks? I'd rather have you go try to win an auction for a 2020 Optic Holo Jalen Hurts PSA 10.
Yeah, I'm all in on that. I think if you could buy this straight up from the store, like we do Tops Nows, like if you could just say, I want 4 of these, I would have already done that. And so like sometimes there's just situations that just make sense if you can find the right deal. And I think a lot of times with our tools, that's the main complaint, is you're just like, oh, I can't find the deals I'm looking for. It's like, well, yeah, because you got to be, savvy and kind of wait on it and be strategic and go find it, but like I'm saying, if you could buy this in a PSA 10 right now from the store at that price, I would have already clicked purchase 4 or 5 of them, so I like this.
I like your analogy there about like, if this were a Tops Now card. And I've been thinking about that kind of thing a lot lately. So I really like that. Just wanted to throw that one out there early on, so people early on in the show could get some value. A lot more value coming up here. But Well, first, another question I wanted to ask everybody, and that is, wouldn't it be nice if there were a tool you could just upload pictures of a card and it would tell you what it would grade and or what it would be worth in the future? Well, we've got one, Lefty. It's the Card Analyzer and Predictor tool at nooffseason.com. Check it out right now. There is a little bit of work involved with this tool, so we do charge $1.50 for premium members and $5.50 for non-premium members, but it's well worth it, and I'm excited about how well that's going right now. So thanks to everybody who's used it. We've had a lot of people using it already since we just launched it last week, and I'm very excited. Definitely getting results turned around in a timely manner from that tool. So everybody keep using it and appreciate your support. Another thing that I want to talk about at the top of today's show is obviously Jake the Guardian is our primary person in the lab these days. He's been in the lab for several months for us recently. And his job, just in case you're new to the Sports Card Strategy Show, is to basically try and run as many cards through the formula as possible. And what that means is basically our sports card rankings at nooffseason.com are ranked based on ROI percentage, projected ROI percentage. So it's a recommendations engine. It's the only recommendations engine out there in the hobby that's going to tell you, it's basically just a cheat sheet of what cards you should buy. Now, Lefty alluded to it earlier. The biggest complaint with that tool is that sometimes you click on the card and there's none available for the target cost. Well, that's fine. Just go to the next card, right? And that's why Jake is kind of adding as many cards as possible to the formula to give people the most options possible to make money. Now, Jake also makes sure that the data is updated consistently. And so what we've started to do on the Sports Card Strategy Show is give you guys the top movers from the formula. So basically what that means is, like, as we update the data and cards are moving up and down the rankings, we're just highlighting the ones that are moving up the rankings the most. And sometimes we're talking about the ones moving down the rankings the most, but that's not really as exciting because that just means don't buy this card. Well, I'm going to give you 3 cards to buy right now from our raw to grade rankings at nooffseason.com. And of course, I want everybody to obviously go check out the rest of the rankings. But props to Jake the Guardian. We'll go from third to first here. So Wemby, his 2023 Prism Hyper, a target cost of 174. The ROI change, it just went up 58%. So now you can make 65% on that card based on the most recent comps. You got to find a gradable version of the Wemby 2023 Prism Hyper. And again, the play is to basically sell as soon as you get it back from PSA. Although with somebody like Wemby, maybe you could even hold a little longer if you get that PSA 10, because it could go up in value when he eventually comes back from his injury. So you got a lot of time to grade that one.
I like this one more than the Prism Silver, to be honest. Like, I like the look of it more. I think it looks more prestigious. I know it's not, but I think it just looks like it's worth more money, which sometimes plays into things, you know? So obviously you're not going to get the experienced buyer to care as much, but I just think like this stands out more on a table. If it's a PSA 10 of this, that could be pretty sweet.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's an interesting point you bring up. I'd kind of like to know in the comments at youtube.com/Paul Hickey, drop a comment on like the Prism Hyper versus Prism Silver. Like Lefty just gave a good take on that. What's your guys' take? Like, does it depend on the pop count? Does it depend on, you know, the year, the player, that kind of thing? But the Prism Hyper definitely doesn't get as much love or as much discussion as the Prism Silver. So I don't know that we ever know the true print run on either of those. Do we, Lefty?
I
know they're short
research on that, but I don't know.
Yeah, we know that they're not. We know that they're technically like short printed, but there's a massive amounts of them. So it's not like they're super short print or close to serial numbered or anything, but it's just interesting. So anybody who has a take on that, drop a comment at youtube.com/Paul Hickey. We'd appreciate hearing from you. Over to the Prism Silver though, Devin Booker. This is a little different because it's 2015. So there definitely weren't as many of these printed back in 2015, but Devin Booker's rookie Prism Silver from 2015, an ROI change of 60%. So now you can make 98% from a raw to grade on that. Target cost $89. And if you're out there rolling your eyes while you're listening to me talk about a 2015 card to grade, Lefty, we've had some of these cards that were printed 8 to 10 years ago that still have done well from a grading standpoint. We grade people's cards for them as part of their premium membership at nooffseason.com. And so we've had cards as far back as Tiger Woods' 2001 Upper Deck card that we've had a lot of people gem grading with us. And so Aaron Judge's 2017 card. So I wouldn't balk at the 2015 Prism Silver Devin Booker. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think this card actually, the ROI is insane on this. And it was actually one of the leading cards that me and Connor talked about in our Prisms Silver discussion about a year and a half ago. We went like really deep on like which players are at what price point. And Devin Booker was one of those where we were like, this card is incredibly priced for what it is. Like if you can find a raw version of this and mint it at that point, we were like, do this, because it was like, I think at that point, what's the PSA 10 silver at for Devin Booker right now? Because at that point, I think it was $1,000.
Yeah, I'm going to pull up our rankings here real quick. Let me see. It is Devin Booker. The PSA 10, so the last 30-day average is $622. So right. $89 target cost, $622 in the last 30 days. High gem rate on that. And the PSA 9, so the reason why the formula likes this also is because a PSA 9 is 142. So getting a gradable version means you really only need a 9 to make profit, and that's pretty rare, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think that's a combination of the pop count and how old this card is. But I'm a big fan of trying to flip this card. I think it's a great opportunity.
And then the last one, up 129% to now you can make 164% ROI on this card if you buy it at $92 and get it graded at PSA. Anthony Edwards 2020 Prism Purple Wave. So that is now the number 2 overall card on our sports card ranking. So that is selling for 178 last 30-day average in PSA 9. But so that's one reason why the formula likes it. The other reason, though, Lefty, is last 30-day average PSA 10, $1,250 on a $92 card. So that's very, very huge right there. If you can get a gemmable copy of that raw for the $92 target cost. Now, depending on how confident you are in it gemming, you could still go way over. We don't encourage you going over the target cost. But for a card like this, you could, and even the Booker, you could still be okay if you get a 9 on either of those cards. So it might be worth a shot. And we love Ant-Man, of course. So
absolutely.
Lefty. Okay. Now I'm going to bring you in a little bit more to talk about this next topic. Cooper Flagg injury. You mentioned it earlier. You think maybe it was a little happy accident that Duke concocted, maybe to get him a little bit more time. I know that we're tongue in cheek in it right now, but I will say I watched the replay and I'm like, what did he even come down on? It didn't even look like he just came down weird on his own foot. Maybe you're right. Maybe he just came down and was okay and just faked the whole thing.
Well, I don't know about that. The sprain looked pretty bad, honestly. Like I was happy when they were like, yeah, this isn't that serious, when there was a believable content out there that was saying the wheelchair was kind of just cautionary. All this, he's actually fine. They're going to rest him in the ACC tournament because they don't feel like anyone can compete with them in the ACC tournament, which was such a freaking ballsy move, which I love. And this team is good without him. I think that's what people don't understand. Like, they've got a bunch of good players without Cooper. That's why they're my pick to win. But
they're
the
very
best player, and so but I think with the avoided injury, I think if that was a 27-year-old player, that dude's done for the year. Like, there's no way that it's only because he's 18 years old and his ligaments are made of rubber bands at this point, and so I'm sure he doesn't feel that way, but being in our stature, a little bit agier than him, we can know, like, you sleep wrong and you're waking up in the IL. So I think Cooper Flagg's injury is fortunate that they were able to get out of there with no diagnosis upon just a mild sprain. but I think he's about to rip. I think the game that is scary for me is that Arizona game because they've already played him. They've already played Arizona, and it was a really tough game at the beginning of the season. And Arizona is just a scrappy team most of the time. I feel like they're more blue collar than people really expect them to be. And I feel like they could push Cooper around. And so we'll really see, I think, in that second, third round if he's healthy or not. But I think they'll breeze through for until that Arizona game.
Yeah, it's good to know that he's okay. And I do believe he'll be back and play well in the tournament as well. I think, from the data I've looked at so far, the injury has not really affected his card market. I think a lot of us are still waiting on some Cooper Flagg cards to get back from PSA. I think I did end up buying into the third one because I had some tops points. I know that was a little controversial at nooffseason.com where I said I don't know that I would recommend everybody buying into the third one. But I did have some tops points that I was able to redeem that basically made it silly for me not to buy into that. So those are minor at PSA. We've got some other nooffseason.com members with that third one at PSA. I had already sold all of the first two. And they seem to still be doing very well in terms of this, selling for above $60 in auctions, in PSA 10, of course. So I think all of us we still need to just complete the Cooper Flagg plays, right? That we set out to from the beginning and just hope for great on-court performances. But even if they don't happen, I mean, the dude's market, I think, is still rock solid. What do you think?
Yeah, I just got that 60 bunch back from the PSA that took so long for me to get at. And I was like, I'm going to get a bunch of PSA 3s on this. I got a 75% gem rate on that. So they're about to hit the vault. I expect that the vault is going to give me some buyout options going into the tournament. And I expect to offload all of those cards. If they don't give me a buyout option and Duke wins their first round matchup, that thing is going straight to auction, all 60 of them. I'm not holding to the NBA draft. I am saying March Madness is where I am getting out on these Tops Now plays. I might hold back maybe 5, maybe out of 60, and so like I doubt anyone else did 60 of them. So like I wouldn't hold back 5 unless you did 60 to 100 of them. I would hold back 1 if you want, but like that's even, guys, this is our cash cow. Reinvest this money. If you got a 75% gem rate on a 5 to 6, or actually this was a $9 card, I think, but that's $30 invested. If you can make, if they're still at $70, $80 and you're getting out of these PSA 10s at that price point, take the potential loss or like maybe marginal win on a PSA 9 and just sell those PSA 10s and freaking get ready for the draft night card that it's about to drop. So
yeah, I totally agree. Everybody needs to hit the rewind button on their podcast app. Shout out to everybody listening on Apple and Spotify. Hit that rewind button, everybody. Listen to what Lefty just said. And Brian Bartunek got 23 graded of the number 1 card on the way to the vault, got 22 out of 23 10s.
Nice.
Super stoked, and copying Lefty's play. So that totally think that's a great move for you, Brian, and for everybody else out there.
96% gem rate for Brian. That's really good numbers.
That's really good. It's really good. And again, and just to remind everybody, not to one up Brian, but out of the total 70 that I submitted to PSA, 40 of them were mine. 30 of them were subscribers of nooffseason.coms that I submitted. 70 10s, 100% gem rate on 70 cards of the number 1 card. So
that makes me so happy.
Happy Brian is doing just as well as I did. We say hello to Pick 6 Cards. Say hello to everybody on Instagram. Not going to name everybody, but thanks for watching live. You want to get named, come over to youtube.com/Paul Hickey and watch it live and smash the like button, subscribe to the channel, all that cheesy stuff. Lefty, let's move from one Cooper to another Cooper real quick, switching sports.
Amari
Cooper Kupp.
Oh, I'm just kidding. I knew where we were going.
You just totally interrupted my amazing segue. I'm just messing with you. Cooper Kupp, Lefty, goes to the Seahawks. We talk about NFL player movement in the offseason being a big selling marker. And as I look at Cooper Kupp sold listings right now, there's a ton that ended today that sold very well. Mosaic Football 2023 stained glass sold on 6 bids for $54. Have to imagine that wouldn't have happened at that level if not for Cooper Kupp moving teams to the Seahawks. A buy it now. Somebody smashed the buy it now button and paid today on a 2019 Panini Limited Cooper Kupp auto out of 25 for $60. Just a lot of those types of sales. If you're familiar with NFL skill position player cards, it's going to be a lot of that kind of stuff. Someone smashed the buy it now button yesterday on a Panini Collegiate National Treasures Cooper Kupp PSA 9 auto out of 99 for $140. I mean, these are some pretty significant sales on some pretty regular Cooper Kupp cards. And there's more of them too. Like there's really not much to these cards. And Cooper Kupp is somebody that, he's he's been one of the best wide receivers in the NFL for a while. So it's not like he's a slouch. It's just that these types of cards just typically don't do that well. And there's not many selling markers for it. So I'm calling a all out sell alert for Cooper Kupp right now. What do you think?
Oh man, I couldn't be more on board with you, man. Like this guy is in his 30s and we've seen how he is getting out. Okay, so he had like basically the best rapport ever on that team before Puka Nacua got there. He gets hurt and everyone's like, oh, Puka can do it much better and is safer and is younger. Okay, cool. And so he's going to go to a Seahawks team that's, by the way, reeling in terms of people being offloaded from that team. It's going to be very strange to see what the 2025 Seattle Seahawks are going to. They're going to have to figure out chemistry. You think Sam Darnold is going to be the same quarterback?
Darnold and Cooper Kupp. They don't have DK Metcalf anymore.
Or Tyler Lockett. So, I mean, this is going to be a totally revamped offense. And it's not going to be easy. Now, we saw Adam Thielen go to Carolina and still be Adam Thielen. At similarly the same age, or I don't know if it's exactly the same age. You're going to have to fact check me on that. But you're going to say a guy that's a veteran wide receiver going to a different team. But at the same time, Flagg, not Cooper Flagg. I mean, he's going to be good too. Cooper Kupp is going to have a good year, but I wouldn't say that you're going to hold for a selling marker. This is the selling marker. He's in the news. Get out.
Yep, exactly. Now another one, Jordan Mason. Some of you will remember him for filling in for Christian McCaffrey last year, and he had a moment in like weeks 1 through 3 where he put up some huge numbers and his cards were going bonkers. He goes to the Vikings, and I think it's the same thing. I mean, yesterday somebody bought his 2022 Panini Contenders rookie ticket auto, base auto, raw for $40 and a buy it now. Just smashed the buy it now, and then his 2020 Panini Prism autograph sold for $25 and a buy it now. So I mean, just tons of Jordan Mason buy it nows yesterday. Now maybe some people got a deal on those because maybe there were Jordan Mason autos sitting there that were underpriced, and maybe those people are going to relist them right away for more money. Good luck with that. I think selling marker right now for Jordan Mason. Get him out there. But I mean, if you just go look at eBay, tons of Jordan Mason rookie ticket autos sold in the last couple of days since that news. So I think a lesser, like he just has way less cards than Cooper Kupp, but probably not by much because Cooper Kupp's from 2019. So get rid of Cooper Kupp, get rid of Jordan Mason.
Yeah, I'm not holding either one of those guys. I'm even less excited about Jordan Mason's position going to the Vikings, who are going to just throw the ball. You're going to have the jet out there just not catching balls. No, JJ McCarthy's going to get all the airtime that he can out of that shoulder, and let's see what happens, bro. Like Jordan Mason, catch me, no way.
Yeah. All right, now Lefty, a topic that I think you threw into the show notes here, so I'm going to kick it back over to you. Some hobby news here. Topps debut patches expanding beyond MLB. Talk about it, Lefty.
Yeah, I did put this in the show notes because I do think this is relevant for our high-end conversations. These are not going to be cards that personally I don't think any of us are going to be getting in on. I think the the Paul Skeens debut PSA 10 right now is at auction, and last I saw it was almost $1 million. So there's no way like this is a card that's necessarily on my radar in terms of going to go buy, but I do think this kind of news does trickle down and is good for the hobby, and especially is good for investing as well. The debut patch has gone from the MLB to the MLS and is now going to the NFL and the NBA. I think this is a good tops standard of the most sought after rookie card. Has previously been the 1-of-1 autographs and stuff like that. These will be the most desirable rookie cards down the road. I think Topps is getting this completely right. It's a game-worn jersey. It's a game-worn patch. It's also signed. They look beautiful. They've done a great job about making them look appealing, which I think is sometimes a really hard thing for apparently Panini to do, because Panini makes some garbage cards. But that's a hot take, I guess, as well. But I think that this is going to be overall good for the hobby because it's a really sought-after top-end card, and it's not necessarily a card that I want to bring up in terms of you should invest in this card, because there's only one of them. Like,
yeah, that's a tough discussion, because we're definitely sort of anti
one of ones almost.
Anti one, yeah, almost anti. We're anti ripping wax too. In addition to
this is break bait.
So this is break bait. This is chase bait in terms of ripping wax. Is it good for the hobby? Yes. Is it a good move for Fanatics Topps to do this? Is it super freaking cool? Yeah. However, does it mean much for our audience? It just means like, hey, let everybody else who doesn't listen to the Sports Card Strategy Show go waste their money chasing these cards. And it just means more opportunity for you, because you're listening to us, to make money flipping sports cards. Just fade this. But it is cool. So like it says early 2026. So what that means is we're finally going to see licensed cards by Topps for the NBA and NFL in 2026. And that's when they're going to debut these things. So at that, I think it's really even more significant to look at, okay, that's when we're going to see Topps Chrome football, Topps Chrome basketball that's licensed. Now, who will the top rookies be in 2026? It's not going to be Cooper Flagg, because he's going to be 2025. Could it be Arch Manning? Could there be more Arch madness in the NFL in 2026? I don't know. I don't know how that shakes out. We'll see. But there's sure
Either
to
way,
be.
We'll be excited about it, and we'll be making content about it when it happens. So
absolutely, I like it. It is big hobby news. We got to talk about it. All right, real quick before we get into some real strategy here. Are you confused by grading your cards with PSA? Just grade with us at nooffseason.com. Send us your cards. We do the hard part, and we save you money. We also track your gem rate for you. So you get it in your member dashboard, tracking your gem rate. PSA doesn't do that for you, but we do. So here's the deal. One thing that came up with some of our Canadian members. So a lot of our Canadian members at nooffseason.com have utilized our grading services. And they're kind of asking me a bunch of questions. And so I want to just come on and kind of say this. If you're outside the United States and you're a premium member of nooffseason.com, and there are many of you, and here's what I would start doing. I would start drop shipping us your cards to grade with PSA, meaning use our address as the shipping address for wherever you're buying your cards, and then fill out in your grading dashboard that card, and then we'll have it graded for you, and we'll consign it for you. Now, don't send us your PC cards, because they're going to cost you an arm and a leg for us to ship them back to you. International shipping, especially Canada. Maybe not other countries, but definitely Canada. And that's why I kind of led with Canadian members. So if you have more questions on that, you can email me at paul@nooffseason.com, but it's relatively simple. I think you should drop ship us your flipping cards. And if there's anything that you are just grading for your PC, you probably want to not do that with us and maybe you could just use CGC cards, the perfect place to slab your favorite sports cards. From their crystal clear holders to their affordable pricing, CGC cards is the perfect stop for your PC grading needs. Go to cgccards.com to start grading today. All right, Lefty. I want to talk about first to the market. We have a segment in here, first to the market. And I got like one that I think is super relevant. And I think the purpose of this segment is to be like, should you try to be first to the market with this particular move? And when I look at Caitlin Clark's Prism cards, that's kind of what I want to talk about. We're in a situation right now where her base Prism PSA 10 sold for $512 recently. So like the PSA 10, $512 last week. The 30-day average is $544.
Just the base.
The base wow. Prism PSA 10.
That's
so
wild.
when you're in a situation where you can buy this card for $65 raw, it's selling for 111 in PSA 9 and 512 in PSA 10. Here's the deal, everybody. That's not going to last that much longer, but should you try it? I mean, look, if you can find a gradable copy of this card, and I think one quick tip is like you're going to be using the landmarks on the design because there really aren't clear borders to this card. So we've got more on that at Sports Card School at nooffseason.com on how to do that. But Lefty, what do you think of this? I mean, base Prism PSA 10, and if you're super confident, I mean, you could go like there are some PSA 15-day turnarounds where you don't really have to pay that much money to get it back in 15 days. I mean, maybe you're doing one card for $40 in the 15-day turnaround time. That could be worth it.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to evaluate in my head. What's the 9 again?
111.
Yeah, I mean, shoot, if you can just get in and out basically for the same price, if you think it's a gemmable option, like, you know, you pay $50 for the card, $50-$60, and you pay $50 or so for shipping, 70 including all that. You're not at a huge loss if it's a 9 anyway. You know, it is a loss, but it's not a huge one, and it's a really good upside on that thing. And I'm not going to fault somebody for risking like that if you have the margin to do so. Now, if you are regularly buying $20 to $30 cards and turning them into $100 cards, I wouldn't say this is a good play for you right now. If you are commonly flipping and turning over $1,000 cards or $500 cards, and you have, you know, your bankroll is currently sitting at $1,500, I think that's a play for you. But if your bankroll is at $100 right now, this is not a play for you. There's too much risk, too much handle, I think, on this. If your bankroll is not, if this isn't like a 10% play roll for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely. And I think another thing too to keep in mind is you probably want to list these in a buy it now.
Yeah.
For now, because you're seeing a lot of fluctuation in the prices here. You're seeing like $300 sale on the PSA 9. That was a little less than a month ago. And then last week, $90 on the PSA 9 and $111 on the PSA 9. So when you're looking at, okay, well, the last sale of the PSA 9 is $111, you do have to keep in mind there's big time fluctuation. There's going to be big time fluctuation until the market settles on these cards. Specifically 2024 Prism Caitlin Clark cards, like all cards from that release are going to take a while for the market to settle on that. What's going to make it even more interesting is that when the WNBA season starts, how is that going to impact, and how does she play in her second year? How is that going to impact the pricing? So you really want to look at the raw to grade options and kind of do the exercise that Lefty and I just kind of walked you through, which is how much are you going to pay raw? Would you do a quick turnaround time at PSA? And what's your downside if you don't get the grade you want? And what's the downside of this card just basically falling a little bit in value day after day as your card is at PSA? Now, Jessica,
you made this play though, right?
I did. I've already submitted. Like, I have like 5 or 6 of each of these at PSA right now, and then I cut myself off. So I don't know when I'm going to get mine back, but I mean, look, if I get some 10s, and I say each of these cards because there's the number 22 and then there's the photo variation, which is number 145. But I've actually I have bought the like the Prism Hyper of the 145, and I've bid on some of the Prism Silver bases just because, you know, those are a little bit harder to find. They're a little bit harder to find in gradable versions. So I think that those have a longer shelf life than the base. I think the base is the one it's a super risky to try and like depend on this math unless your play is to really get it back quick and get it out there before this pop count just gets out of control. I think when the pop count gets out of control and when the WNBA season starts, maybe I hope this doesn't happen, but what if she doesn't perform as well? What if people are just like, okay, well, she's last year's news. I mean, there's a lot of what ifs with Caitlin Clark. So I think you gotta go. I'm buying into her, but I'm buying in very strategically with raw to grade plays in mind. And
she's one of your 5 athletes as well. So you have to buy into her.
Yeah. Well, I don't have to, but I can.
Yeah.
So put it that way.
You're trying to find plays on her card, so we'll just put it that way.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I wanted to say that is because I'm pointing out risks even with my own 5 players, right? There's risks even with my own 5. And I think if buying into too many of these Caitlin Clark prisms too early on could be a risk, but I do think that the reward is like these numbers of trying to be first to the market. So
did you see Jessica's question here?
Yes. So yes, thank you. So Jessica asks if the 15-day turnaround is an option through nooffseason.com. It is. However, email me and then I will quote you on the price difference because the $24 a card is based on the value bulk submission that we make, and you get a lot of benefits to that. But if you're looking to do like a one-off quicker turnaround time, we do offer that, but there is a price difference that you have to pay for us to do that for you. And I done that several times with other members that have asked. So Jessica, just email me and we can get that taken care of for you. So many great tips on this show. How about you give us a tip? Go to tips.sportscardstrategy.com. Donate whatever amount you can to help us continue to bring you great sports card content regularly. And if you like the content on this show, get an extra weekly podcast on Fridays for premium members only by joining nooffseason.com today. You've heard us mention it several times on this episode. It's called the Premium Pod. Lefty, next segment, addicted to crack? Paul and Lefty examine a couple of cards to see if they're worth cracking and submitting to a different grading company. A couple of classic quarterbacks that I wanted to talk about because I do think while March may not be the best time to buy current players in the NFL, who's even thinking about ancient quarterbacks like Joe Montana? Is anybody thinking about Joe Montana right now? Maybe. But anyway, Joe Montana, his 1981 Topps base has always been a card that I've liked to examine and try to figure out like where there's opportunities in this card. And it's interesting. Like now, this is never going to be an exact science to try to figure this out, but there are a lot of opportunities with Joe Montana, 1981 Topps base, cracking slabs from BGS and other grading companies and submitting them to PSA. For example, a PSA 9 last sold for $1,830 and a BGS 9 last sold for $1,250. A BGS 8.5 last sold for $334 and a PSA, I just said the PSA 9 price, it's ridiculously more than that. And you can move up a half grade, but PSA also has an 8.5 for a lot of these older cards. And that last price is $750. So there's a lot of opportunity. Last BGS 7.5 sold for 174. Last PSA 7.5 sold for 271. Last PSA 7 sold for 201. And get this, a PSA 6.5 sold for 324. So, I mean, you get a lot of different things with these grades. Some of it's based on eye appeal, but I have made this Joe Montana play before, and I've made it successfully, being able to crack out of an SGC or a BGS, move it to a PSA, and you can do it at whatever budget you're at. It's going to be harder, obviously. I think as you're swinging for the fences, it's going to be harder. I actually think it's much easier to try to go after, say, a BGS 6 for $125, and then maybe it gets a PSA 7, depending on the subgrades, those kinds of things, and you can sell it for 200 or a little bit more than 200. So looking at the Joe Montana play, Lefty, before I move to the other quarterback, what do you think about the Joe Montana play?
This scares me, honestly. I have not made very many of these plays. Maybe 3 in this realm in my whole time being a sports card collector or investor, because like I've seen you get burned by these. And so I'm like, okay, I'm going to have to learn some lessons here before I get really good at this. And I don't know if I really want to dip into the vintage market right now. At least I think I'm making enough money and making a good amount of turnaround with ultra modern cards that I think this is a scary market for me because I don't exactly know it. But if you can make the numbers work and emotionally, I don't have to, I can take myself out of it, then I'm willing. The hard part is the raw value of this card is really hard to determine, because obviously we've talked about this a lot, but raw values of cards dictate on what the raw card looks like. You know, like it's not like a PSA 10 is a PSA 10 is a PSA 10. A raw card could be something that your dog chewed on, or it could be a gem mint, you know? And so like you're going to pay the price difference based on what the auction of the card looks like. So right now a raw card value of this card is $60, but who knows what that $60 card looked like. You know, for instance, there's one right now that's an auction for $40. And there's like a corner gone on this card. Like there's not even a corner on it. It's just rounded. Like literally it's been cut, you know? And so like, that's not going to grade at all. You know, like they might not even send that one back. They might just send it back to you saying doesn't meet standard, you know, or whatever the lingo is. So like, that's not even worth paying $40 for, in my opinion. People are going to be like, oh, it's $20 less than target cost. Like, great. Wrong, because you're not going to get the value in this, in my opinion. Does all that make sense?
Well, yeah, but you just said raw, and this segment's called Addicted to Crack. So we're talking about cracking it out of a reputable grading company's slab.
You're so correct. Thank you.
So what are you talking about, Lefty? Come on,
you're right. Okay. I'm tripping. Good. Quality assessment.
Definitely
the quality control of our podcast. Don't buy this card raw.
For those of you wondering, because there are a lot of new listeners coming in, and like the reason why I would never buy a card like this raw, and some people would because they just want the card. The reason I want to make money flipping cards, the reason why I wouldn't buy this card raw is because a lot of these older cards have been trimmed, and so if you see edges and corners that look too good to be true, chances are, and if it looks perfect, if cards like this look perfectly centered that are raw, chances are they've been trimmed or altered in some way, and you would get like a do not holder situation from PSA but if it's coming from SGC or BGS, for example, and you're going to crack a BGS 6.5 that you paid $108 for, and you're hoping that it gets a PSA 6.5, which last sold for $324. You're not going to get, I mean, I would say the worst that would probably happen is you might get like a PSA 4, and that's $86. Well, if you paid if you paid $108 for the BGS 6.5, you're really only out like $40. And so I just think that one thing Lefty did hit on, though, is that the eye appeal of the card is very important. So all BGS 9s obviously aren't created equal. All PSA 4s aren't created equal, especially when you're looking at a card from 1981. The next card I wanted to talk about real quick is...
Thanks for clarifying that. That's...
Yeah. No problem.
A royal miss by Lefty McKee here.
The segment is called Addicted to Crack. It's not called Raw to Grade. But Lefty, we love you. So with that in mind, Tom Brady's 2000 Bowman Chrome base. I do not like Tom Brady, by the way, for the record. I don't dislike him as much as I dislike another person who attempts to throw the football and run around, who I think now plays in Pittsburgh. We don't want to talk about him, but Tom Brady, 2000 Bowman Chrome, 236 base, BGS 9, average in the last 30 days, $1,860. In PSA 9, the average in the last 30 days is $400 more than that. Now, look, again, trying to come up with ways for you guys to make money flipping sports cards may not be a foolproof way. However, BGS 9s have been known to sometimes cross over into PSA 9s. I mean, it's going to depend on the eye appeal. It's going to depend on the subgrades, but you could make $300 after fees and after costs. Granted, you have to spend $1,800 to make $300, but I mean, that's how you make money flipping sports cards sometimes. Lefty, how do you feel about the Tom Brady Bowman Chrome 236 rookie from the year 2000?
Now that I'm on the same segment, I'm a lot more inclined to do this.
Welcome
to the show. Here we are. This Tom Brady Bowman card for me is kind of one of those like GOAT status cards for me. Like, I'm like, man, I want to have this card at some point. And this would be a great way to try to get into this card, because like we don't like holding cards. Me and Paul, we don't like holding them, but I do want to be able to say that I have had one of those cards. And I think if I'm going to have like a GOAT status card like this, I want to get in and get out and potentially make some money on it. That would be sick. And the most confident way that you can potentially make money on this card, because there's a lot of fakes of this card as well, because of how big it had been in like 2020, 2021, right before he retired, then I just know that this card has had some volatility. So if you can get in on it and out of it in a way that could potentially make you money and not be as volatile, sign me up. So if you can find the right numbers on this one too, then I'm good.
And a PSA 8.5 sells, you'd get a profit if you get a half grade lower. At PSA, it sells for last sale was almost $2,700. A PSA 8 average, all-time average, which I think is kind of safe to look at, because you don't have maybe not. Maybe we shouldn't. Let's just do 365. 365 day average of the PSA 8 is around $1,300. So you would lose as much as you would gain if you get the grade lower. So that's the risk. That's the risk with the Addicted to Crack segment. So it's definitely not a foolproof strategy, but it is a strategy that we look at pretty regularly to see if there's an opportunity. And Lefty just made a good point. A card like this, like Tom Brady's 2000 Bowman Chrome 236 base, is a card that could go up over time anyway. So even if you don't get the grade you want from this play, you might still acquire a card that could go up in value over time. Wouldn't guarantee that, but it's certainly like the right ballpark for trying to make that happen when you're looking at Tom Brady.
Yeah.
I think you're looking at Jordan, Brady. You're looking at guys like probably like your Jackie Robinsons and your your Mickey Mantles, Babe Ruths, like those types of guys. And so Brady's he's in that sentence for sure. Last segment of the day, release calendar strategies. I think the biggest thing I wanted to talk about today that's kind of in the release calendar is that with the release of 2024 Topps Inception, coming up this week. I believe it's let's see, when is it coming out? Okay, it actually comes out a couple weeks from now. March 28th, Topps Inception Football. And we obviously just had Topps Chrome Football, which we spent a little bit of time on. Panini Zenith Football comes out later this week. So Topps Inception, Panini Zenith, all that stuff. I think the biggest thing is like you're seeing more and more rookie cards for Jayden Daniels, Caleb Williams, Drake May, and these are all unlicensed. But we're starting to see these Jayden Daniels autographs on the market. And so Topps Inception has like a dual auto, dual patch, Caleb Williams, Jayden Daniels. If you search Jayden Daniels auto on eBay, you're starting to see like listings for his Topps Chrome stuff. So you see like a Future Stars auto with 6 days left, 2 bids at $147.50. You see stuff like his Topps Chrome Aqua Refractor out of $199, 21 bids, 6 days left, $102.50. So I guess I just wanted to have a quick discussion around with Zenith coming out this week and Inception coming out next week. You're going to see more and more, not only rookie cards for these guys, but you're going to see more and more autos for these guys. We know they're unlicensed. I'm not so sure that the unlicensed part matters as much as the fact of the matter is that more and more supply will be hitting the market. And so that will affect the value of every other rookie card that has hit the market for these guys thus far. It'll affect the value of their Prism stuff. It'll affect the value of their Donruss stuff, I know a lot of people bought into the Donruss Optic Red Pandora, Optic Preview Red Pandora for this year's rookie class, especially the quarterbacks and stuff. So just wanted to throw a word of caution out there. Release calendar strategy for me would be either use this opportunity to go back and buy better cards from earlier years releases that are down in value and that have an opportunity to go up in value, or or you could go back and just monitor the value of, if you really like Williams, Jayden Daniels, Bo Nix, these guys we've talked about JJ McCarthy a lot recently as potentially being a good buy. Monitor the prices of their earlier releases from Panini and maybe go back and buy those if they dip. Lefty, what do you think about this whole situation with these? And obviously, people are going to want these Jayden Daniels autos, but there's going to be more and more of them. So I just be careful is what I have to say. What do you think?
This isn't the card I would get excited about. These are going to cost more than I'm going to want to pay for an unlicensed card. Plus, if I'm going to spend the money to get an auto of one of those guys, Zenith is not what I'm going to go after, And so, for instance, last year at the National, I was looking for Jared Goff cards. We went into the National and I looked at you and I said, I'm looking at Jared Goff and I'm looking at Lamar Jackson. Perfectly executed those two things. I came home with the cards I wanted from those, except Jared Goff was extremely hard to find, and I was having a hard time finding Jared Goff cards. And it was like the last day we were there where I was able to find some. And a Zenith card out of 6 was a card, one of the only cards I could find. And so at that point, I was like, golly, I can't find anything. I'm going to have to buy this one Zenith card. As soon as I bought it, I paid. There's no comps, because whatever. It was a cool looking card. As soon as I bought it, I was like, this isn't the card I want. This is not a good buy, because I'm going to have to convince somebody that it's worth the out of 6. We talk about, you don't want to convince somebody to buy your card. You want somebody to be like, I want that no matter what, You don't want to be like, oh, well, this is an out of 6. You don't want to have to put your salesman hat on, because your salesman hat doesn't matter when people can just go find another option. eBay doesn't give us the opportunity to put on a salesmanship hat with some degree. You can do that with titling and pictures, but that's all you got. You don't have any persuasion really. So you don't get the opportunity to persuade somebody with this auction. That's why I'm out on this card. That's why I'm not interested in it. I'm going to go buy a $5 version of a Jayden Daniels card much faster than I'm going to go buy an auto version of this card, because a lot of different options, but just miss me on this one for sure.
Yeah. And Another thing too is that if you look at the value of CJ Stroud cards post September 2024, which is when Topps Composite football came out, that had a version like a Topps Chrome in it that's like the Topps version of Chronicles. We've talked about that a lot on this show. The value has just gone down so much because there are now so many CJ Stroud rookie cards. The value of his Prism Silver, his Prism Base, his other Prism variations have gone down so much, partially due to, his second season wasn't as flashy as his first. It wasn't as successful as his first in a lot of ways. However, he still is the same player. He's still super young and he's on a great team. And I think it leads me to believe that the bigger impact on his card value is simply supply and demand. The market got flooded with supply in September of 2024. The demand arguably stayed the same or maybe got a little bit worse. And then there you go. We saw evidence of, even like, I think you, Turner, Joe, and I found, between the four of us, one of you guys found a CJ Stroud rookie Topps Chrome out of Composite PSA 10 that sold in an auction for like under $4.
Yeah.
And so under $4. I mean, that is like that. So what I'm saying is that definitely could happen to the Jayden Daniels base Prism or the Jayden Daniels base Topps Chrome. It won't happen to the auto. There's no way that's going to happen to the auto, but we could be talking about the Jayden Daniels card prices being the CJ Stroud card prices a year from now. So
yeah, I love that.
What's the takeaway on that? I think the takeaway is, like, if you believe Jayden Daniels is the real deal, just wait. Just wait till the mid-season dip, Wesley collects cards, is a premium member at nooffseason.com. Yo to Wesley. He says hello from North Carolina. We had a lot of people dip into the live chat. Our own Jacob Holloway, Jake the Guardian, had a take on the Prism Silver combo. He says most overrated parallel in cards may just be because I'm a baseball guy and refractors don't nearly have the same premium. That's a good point. Authentic Sports Card Dad says silvers are more common than hyper. Hyper were hobby exclusive. So thanks for that. Appreciate that. Just because hyper is more rare doesn't equal more value. The hobby is emotional, not logical. Okay. I know Cards to the Moon calls that hobby logic. So shout out to our friends over at Cards to the Moon. Pick Six Cards. What's up? Lefty, one thing I'll say before, I know you were out in left field for a minute earlier in this episode. We're going to bring you back in from out of left field for out of left field here in a second. But one thing I will say before I tee you up for that is, for any of you who have heard me say how horrible breaking is and say how horrible ripping wax is, I mean, this isn't new. I've said this really at least since 2022. Maybe even prior to that. Lefty and I have been doing this show. I've been doing this show since 2021. Lefty joined me in 2022. We've been rocking together since then. And we've put out a lot of content. And I would say consistently, we've shown why not to break, why not to rip wax. Has that stopped anyone from breaking and ripping wax? In the nooffseason.com fam? Yes. Outside of the nooffseason.com fam, no. Has that slowed down the overall amount of breaking or ripping wax that exists in the hobby? No. I would say we're like a salmon trying to swim upstream. So for any of you who are out there going, why is Paul talking about don't break or don't rip wax when the hobby needs that to happen so that Paul can buy his singles? Don't get it twisted. I'm telling all of you listening to the Sports Card Strategy Show not to do that. We are like a fly on an elephant's ass in terms of the size of the hobby. We're the fly, the hobby is the elephant, in case you didn't get that analogy. So don't think that I'm out there trying to stop breaking or stop ripping wax. A, I could never make that happen. B, of course I know that that's not going to happen. I'm trying to help all of you not lose your money. So like, that's what I care about. I'm not out there trying to like change the world. I just want anyone who comes into the Sports Card Strategy Show and the nooffseason.com fam to know where I stand, to give Lefty an opportunity to say where he stands, and for all of you to make your own decisions based on that. That's all. So Lefty, let's bring you in from out of left field, brother. What do you got to add as the parting shot for today's ep before I hit him with the outro?
I'm a recovering break addict as well, because I thought that was how you make money. I thought that was how you made money in finding cards that were accessible. That's false. eBay is the way you can find those things, and you can just be patient. And there's more cards that you can buy into. You don't have to be fixated on one specific raw card. And then 2, there's not even a way to make money really in breaking. Like, I promise you, I tried it for like over a year and a half. Yeah, but like being the breaker, you can't make money unless you have allocation spots with a distributor and all this kind of stuff, which is basically corporate jargon for they let their friends in. So I'm just out on all this. I'm out on the whatnot stuff. I'm out on that. I have lost more money in that realm than I have making money in the other realm. So I'm still trying to recover from that. I kind of have we need like the Alcohol Anonymous chips. We need a Breakers Anonymous chips. I've gone 6 months without breaking or something like that. So that's where we need a badge for that on the portal for the nooffseason.com. So
if you do feel like you want to talk about somebody to get some help, just email me at paul@nooffseason.com. Lefty, you got anything else from out of left field?
Not that I got enough time or energy for today. We'll save that for a future episode.
All right, sounds good. Well, here it is then. Jaime Corona said, breaking got me into the hobby. nooffseason.com helped me not enter a repack break in like 5 months. And since then, I've definitely had more profits. We appreciate Jaime sharing his story there. Everybody, thanks again. Have a great week. We'll see you soon. Thanks so much for being here with us on the Sports Card Strategy Show. If you enjoyed the content on today's show, there's plenty more waiting for you at nooffseason.com. Just go to nooffseason.com right now and get a free 30-day trial. You get our formula-based sports card rankings, sports card school, inventory tracker, the ability to grade with us, and the premium podcast where we answer an unlimited amount of your questions. Check it out right now at nooffseason.com. For everyone at nooffseason.com, I'm Paul Hickey. Thanks again for being here with us on the Sports Card Strategy Show. We'll see you again soon. Have a great day.